Hey guys, what's up? Have you ever wondered how to teach a dog tricks? And I mean like any trick. In this video, we'll highlight 3 cool dog tricks and we'll show you the process for how to teach any trick you'd like to teach to your dog. We're going to do a deep dive into how we teach dog tricks and more importantly, why we teach dog tricks. I'll give you a little hint. It's more than just for our amusement. It can be a great relationship and confidence building tool that enhances your communication with your dog and allows you to hone in on your developing dog trainer skills. I'm Erica Pasha with the Canine. Let's get to it. Basic trick training is one of the first things I assign to new clients, and I often get asked, why are we teaching these things? They're not relevant or necessary for everyday life, so why do we do it? Teaching our dogs simple tricks creates a dialogue that is consistent and predictable. For creatures that can't communicate via verbal language, predictability and consistency become vital. Think about it. You're living with your roommate who's a completely different species than you, and you have no way to communicate with them. You're gonna look for different patterns and routines to try and figure out why they do what they do and when they're asking you to do something. Teaching tricks helps to solidify some of these patterns for both you and for your dog. It creates a language that helps you be more consistent in all aspects of interactions with your dog, and it makes your relationship stronger as a result. Okay, let's dive in and take a look at the 3 steps we have to follow to teach our dog any trick. Step 1, understanding basic training mechanics. Through the process of trick training, I not only help my dogs to understand more words, but also basic training mechanics. These can be used to teach a variety of behaviors, including ones that are a little bit more usable in our daily routines with our dogs. If you really dial in your mechanics, your dog will be more attentive in more settings. The first thing you have to think about with regards to your training mechanics are how you're going to make this new behavior happen the first time. You can do this a few different ways. You can make that new behavior happen by luring your dog, by taking a piece of food and luring them into the behavior you'd like to see, shaping by rewarding small approximations toward the end goal, or capturing your dog in the act without prompting them to do anything. When you do get your dog to do that behavior you're looking for, you have to have a way to communicate with the dog that that is what you wanted. There's a few different ways to mark that behavior. One of the best ways is through the use of a clicker. Some people prefer to use a verbal marker for marking behaviors that they like to see. For example, if I don't have a clicker on me, I might use the word yes, and I'm going to try to make that word as consistent as possible. These markers are predictors of reinforcement, meaning that every time the dog hears that word, they know that something rewarding is going to happen to them. These markers don't mean anything by themselves, so the dog does have to be conditioned to them prior to any work. This can be accomplished easily by sitting down with your dog with 10 treats that they really like, making your verbal yes or your click, and immediately following that sound with a yummy snack right into their mouth. They'll figure out pretty quick that that sound is important and meaningful for them. After your dog has learned what the marker word or marker sound means, we can move on to rewarding our dogs for the desired behavior. This means that if my dog sits when I ask him to sit, I will click right when his bottom hits the ground, and then I will deliver a treat into his mouth. I like to use food here because it's loved by most dogs, and there's just so many different varieties of food to choose from. If your dog doesn't like one thing, it's pretty easy to try something else out that they will like. Not only that, but food can be quickly consumed, and it makes the training process a lot more efficient. Meaning I can get more repetitions in if I'm using a little piece of food to reward after each repetition, rather than praise or affection or play. Food makes training very, very efficient. It's kind of like it's a win-win for me as the trainer, and also for my dog as the consumer. The last step to creating a new behavior for our dogs is to put it on cue. When we put a behavior on cue, that means we're assigning a word to it through lots of repetitions and reinforcement. So our dog starts to learn associations between the word and the behavior that they're supposed to perform in order to earn reinforcement. For example, if I'm asking my dog to lay down on cue, they'll learn pretty fast that when I say down, if they lay all the way down on the floor, they will get the marker sound followed by reinforcement. Step 2, set yourself up for success. I think one of the best things you can do to set yourself up for success is to get a treat pouch. This makes rewards easily accessible and makes repetitions a lot faster and more efficient. Fill your treat pouch with rewards that your dog likes. For example, some dogs find kibble to be reasonably exciting, which means that you can use their regular meals for their training. Super convenient. This is a wonderful way to enrich your dog's life, working for their food in an interactive training session with you. What could be better? Since a lot of trick training generally happens in the house, you can kind of get away with using lower or medium value food rewards. I tend to use regular training treats or just a novel kibble that my dogs don't usually get for their meals. In addition to having your treat pouch prepared, I highly suggest that you also have a clicker in hand. I like clickers a lot because they offer a consistent sound. You remember all that talk in the beginning about predictability and why it's important? When we use the word yes, there can be a lot of different sounds that come out of our mouths. For example, tone, inflection, volume, all of those things impact that word. Whereas with a clicker, the sound is very predictable and it always means the same thing every time the dog hears it. It's also much easier to mark exact moments in time with a clicker. It's kind of like having a capture button on a camera for an exact moment in time that you would like to repeat. Step 3. Create a training session. Choose a trick that you would like to train. I often look to other trainers on Instagram or YouTube for inspiration when I'm not sure what to teach next. Make sure you start out with something simple if your dog is new to tricks. For example, you might teach a nose target, sit, crawl, spin, shake, something that's a little bit easier for them to grasp in just a couple of training sessions so that they can build up their confidence. Starting with something too difficult can create a lot of frustration for not only your learner, but for you as well. For this example, I'm going to teach my dog how to touch my hand with his nose for the cue touch. And then I'm going to use that to teach him a more complicated trick, weaving in and out of my legs as I walk. First, I'm going to offer my closed hand. When I feel his nose touch my hand, I'm going to click and reward. I'm going to do this several times until he's readily touching my hand as soon as it is presented. Then I'm going to say touch before presenting my hand. Again, when Chester is successful, I'm going to click that exact moment and I'm going to reward him for several repetitions of that. Now I'm going to make it a little harder by incorporating some movement, making the touches more interesting and requiring him to move towards my hand to touch it. Finally, I'm going to start adding repetitions of touching on my opposite side after walking through my legs. If your dog doesn't get it in one session, don't be discouraged. Think about how you can break down the task a little more for your dog so that they can have successful repetitions that get closer and closer to the end goal. For example, with Chester, I had to do lots of single reps through my legs before I could start chaining them together, which is a much more difficult thing for him to do. If they fail a task more than one time in succession, you need to take a step back and make things simpler for them in your training session. In just a moment, we'll check in with Chester's completed trick. But for now, I want to show you 3 other cool tricks that you could teach your dog. Spin. Start by luring your dog in a circle. After they've done this a few times, remove the food and do the same luring motion. Over time, make smaller and smaller motions with your hand while the dog still spins in a circle. By the end, your dog will spin in a circle just by twirling your finger in the air. Sit up. Start from a sit position. Using food, lure your dog's nose higher. As soon as one foot is lifted off the ground, mark and reward. Over time, reward 2 feet off the ground, then have them a little higher and for a little bit longer duration. It may take your dog a few sessions to get the balance figured out for this one. We've seen many dogs tumble and fall sideways on this one. Keep going, asking for a little more height and duration each time. Between, start with your legs shoulder width apart. Lure your dog in between your legs, making sure to try to avoid lurking over your dog. We don't want to scare them. Using a second person here to do the luring can help too. Mark and reward when the dog is positioned between your legs. Add a sit to the end of the behavior for an extra challenge. All right, let's check out the final results of our trick training sessions with Chester.
Yeah, so silly. Oh, so silly. Are you ready? Through. 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 Yay! Good boy!
What a good boy! So now you know, trick training can be a great way to actively build your relationship and your communication with your kind canine. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, where you can find more dog training tips to energize and strengthen your relationship with your dog. Bye for now!